So I'm landing and I get my luggage. And it's about 7 o'clock, 7:10 a.m. And I walk outside and I see seminarians waiting for me in the pickup area. And I see about 7 or 8 cars. And I get teary-eyed thinking about it. That's the brotherhood and the sisterhood that is established at that place.
Yeah.
That's why the school is so important to me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Path to the Priesthood, the podcast where we sit down with Orthodox clergymen from around the country, and we ask them what it was that brought them to ordained ministry in Christ's church. I'll be your host, Christo Pappademos. We have a very special guest for you today, but before we meet him, let's hear a little bit about him. Father Demetrios Costarakis is the sixth generation of priests in his family. He was born in New York, yet was raised his entire life in San Bernardino, California. During his time at Hellenic College Holy Cross, he held leadership positions at various summer camps: St. Sophia Camp in San Bernardino, St. Nicholas Ranch in Fresno, Camp Oxios in San Bernardino, and the Metropolis of Boston Camp in, I'm sorry, Father, I'm not sure, Contoocook, New Hampshire? Contoocook, New Hampshire. Thank you very much. And was the director of the Metropolis of Boston Youth and Young Adult Basketball Leagues. Father Demetri graduated from Hellenic College in 2000 and from Holy Cross Seminary in the fall of 2003. After graduation, he served as the pastoral assistant and youth director at the St. Demetrios Greek Orthodox Church in Weston, Massachusetts. He was ordained a deacon on January 23, 2005, and a presbyter on February 20th, 2005. He continued to serve as the assistant priest at St. Demetrios until he was assigned as the presiding priest at the Transfiguration Church in Lowell, Massachusetts in January 2006. In November of 2008, he was assigned to the parish family of St. Nicholas in Lexington, Massachusetts, where he served as the presiding priest for 13 years. On September 15th, 2022, His Eminence Metropolitan Methodius assigned him to serve at the St. George Cathedral in Manchester, New Hampshire, as the presiding priest and dean. Father Demetri and his wife, Presbytera Gloria, have 2 boys. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Father Demetri.
Hello, everybody. And Christo, thank you for taking the time in reaching out and hearing all those things. Wow, it's amazing. We're 30 years have gone because that's when I entered seminary. So it's amazing.
That is interesting. It's always interesting to hear kind of your own biography, read before you, and to look back and think on those things. And that's why we're here today. So I've known you for a while. I knew you back at the seminary. You were always one of those friendly, warm, happy, positive faces that would come around the school. Then I was lucky enough to actually shadow you in my senior year, which is a program that the seminary has. But I admit that I don't really know much about your story myself. Of course, I know who your father was from my time in Boston as well. But so I'm very excited to have you on the program. And in your own words, Father, would you like to take us back to the beginning and tell us what kind of was the first sign that you might want to be a priest?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you heard that I'm the 6th generation of priests in the family. And like my hairline, it is gone very thin, leading to me.
No, right. Not your hair, Father.
So yeah. No, it was something that I totally respected. And knowing what my grandfather of blessed memory, my papu, went through being a priest in Greece during World War II.
Wow.
And being arrested by the German soldiers in Greece.
Whoa.
And then being, he went through an ordeal. So he was arrested in his vestments after liturgy.
No way.
Yeah, and as my father tells me, the story was he had told the women of the area that he was not to give their bodies to the German soldiers because we are a church of faith.
Yeah.
And we're a church of martyrs.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate sign of servitude to Christ, is to say no and to give one's life. If that means that we are subjecting ourselves to things that would not be well pleasing to God and to his church. And so he was arrested in vestments after he completed the liturgy, after he consumed the gift. They actually played Russian roulette with him, and they put the bullet in the chamber, spun the chamber, and pulled the trigger 3 times. Luckily, the bullet in the chamber never went off.
Whoa.
He was then released, and channels were made for him to be brought to the United States. He
Whoa.
came first, and then my father came with my yaya and then my niece, who was younger than my father at that time. And they came to the United States. They settled in Lewiston, Maine,
Wow.
and then in Holyoke, and then they went to Mason City, Iowa. And it wasn't until my papu was, I want to say my father was a junior in high school, as he told me, that my papu, what we would call today PTSD, as they called it back then, shell shock.
Okay.
He went mute for almost 3 months. He couldn't speak, he couldn't serve, because I think just the mere factor of being okay, his family being okay, and having that remembrance of what happened came upon him. And so the where I'm tying this in a little bit is those vestments that he was arrested in were the same vestments actually that he was ordained in.
No
Those were
way.
the same vestments that my dad was ordained in. And that
Wow.
those are the same priest vestments that I unworthily was ordained in.
That is
And
amazing.
yeah, and for me to know that, to wear that betrahili on that ordination when His Eminence Metropolitan Methodius brought me to the rank of the second degree of priesthood, the second ranking of priesthood, to know that that betrahili is a reminder to me that would I be willing to be shackled to spread the message of the gospel, just like my grandfather did. And that, to me, to have that connection, especially with those same set of vestments that 3 of us were ordained in, that wore, and what he was wearing when that transpired, that to me is just continues to be awe-inspiring.
I mean, that is amazing. You had a real martyr in your family, it sounds like, and of course the petrachili is always a holy item, but we know when vestments are associated with, you know, the saints or priests who go through maybe something traumatic or something that really tests the faith like that, those items become even holier, I would say. So it's like, not only do you have a martyr of sorts in your family, but you have living relics that you actively used when you became a priest yourself. That's amazing. Now, Costarakis, was this on Crete then that your papu was a
So
priest?
my papu, so the name is Cretan.
Yeah.
My papu at the time was serving the cathedral of Ipapandi in Kalamata.
No way. He was arrested at Ipapandi in
Yeah,
Kalamata.
he was arrested there, and he was then he was the priest there at the time. So the name is Cretan, but my dad was from the village in Dada in Messenia in Greece.
Okay.
So that is where the family, and there's a little bit of points of information. We don't need to go into too much detail about those last names with Cretan last names, but being from Kalamata, and I'm looking hopefully forward in the next couple of years to going there. We went to Greece for the first time last year ever. I've been to Greece.
Wait, hang on. Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta jump in
Sorry.
and ask.
I'm giving you a lot right now.
No, this is great though. So your dad was born in Greece, and I attended church in Lexington, and I would, hear you speaking Greek with the parishioners that maybe could only speak Greek, and I just assumed you're like one of those guys that spends time in Greece, maybe it even served in
Oh
Greece at some point.
no.
Interesting. Now, was it maybe because a lot of people think of Greece as this place for vacation and fun and the beach, but your family's experience was, it was quite unique. Well, not unique to the other refugees during the war, but was there, because of those experiences, was there never this excitement to return for vacation?
I can say that I know the one thing that my father never, ever ate post-war, because he saw it from a young age, were olives.
From
Because
Kalamata and never ate all.
that's all they had to eat.
Wow.
So he had that still embedded in him at a young age, 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old when he came to the United States. Even though we had olive trees in the backyard and we had olive trees on the grounds of the church, which was Profeta Elia, which was on a hill, and Prophet Elias, and he would do he knew how to do it. He knew how to take care of the olives. He knew how to turn them. He knew how to take care of them. He taught me how to do it. Put them in the barrel. Then you have to a certain amount of days. You have to empty it out and redo
Look
it.
at that.
Oh yeah, but he never touched them. Never ever ate them.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, again, growing up in the priestly family, my dad was one of those priests that never ever took a day off.
God bless him.
He was one of that era, right?
Yes, there was a different era.
He was like, I don't want to quote him as a Bell Belichick, but there are no days off. So
trust in the process.
Right. So he was. He never, he emphasized that. And then for me, it was, you were always, if you weren't in school, you were working. So, and that was my kind of thing too. And it was just like, oh, okay, maybe next year, maybe next year, maybe next year, maybe next year. And then finally it got presented to us that we were able to go last year through a great program of the Archdiocese, Ionian Village. And it was awesome to have that experience, number one, for it to be shared with my wife and our boys at the same time. So our oldest to be a camper in the program, our youngest to be in the bungalows with us.
He was in the bungalow,
the bungalows with us. But then to the highlight, of course, again, seeing everything and just having that opportunity was to give that own special pilgrimage that I had made to St. Nectarios for the miracle that he did for my mother through his intercessions, and to go to that holy man's resting place and to just say thank you and to kneel and to just be in that moment of just utter emptying of my emotions to that great saint right there.
There he is.
And to give him the thanks that I needed to do for the miracles that through his intercessions through Christ, I'm able to have memories of my mom. So thank God. But that was. Yeah.
So that was your first time to Greece was for Ionian Village. That was the case with me as well. My dad was one of the on-staff priests that help out. And so my first time in Greece was going on to see these sites. And that was for me as a 20-year-old man, I guess. But for you as a priest that had, I had a very limited understanding of certain saints and St. Nectarios and everything, which that is a beautiful, his tomb specifically, there's a lot of saints in churches and it's kind of busy. Sometimes it's crowded. You have St. Spiridon on Kerkyra and it's humming with pilgrims, but St. Nectarios is at the monastery there. It is a busy, the grounds itself is busy, but in that little space where they have his tomb is very peaceful. And so I'm glad you're able to have that moment in there with St. Nectarios. But now being a priest and having pre-studied all these things and prayed to all these saints, what was that like seeing the St. Nectarioses, the St. Dionysioses, and going to these holy sites, Osios, Lukas, that you probably had known about from books and then seeing it for yourself?
Of course. It's to actually be in the presence of to go into the cave of St. Gerasimos, and to go down that very narrow ladder and then to go into that cave that you hear about the miracle of, someone with faith. And I don't mind sharing this with you. We had a young camper. We had a camper who unfortunately hurt his back.
Boy.
A couple of days before. And he was, this guy was in pain. And he didn't know if he would be able to go in and through the process of going. And we were telling him, as priests, just have the faith, continue to pray and seek the intercessions of the saint that you want. And so this person, got down on all knees, and he's a big guy, he's a senior. He played high school football.
And that's a very tight
small space.
Yeah.
And he got through, and he was, he got through. He's like, oh, my back. He wasn't in pain anymore.
No way.
So to actually be in that moment, with that young man with his cabin mates who knew that he was in pain,
Yeah.
that, he couldn't sit down during a session because it would bother him. He had to stand up for a little bit,
Well, that
you're
bad.
thinking how, and then to have that happen, and then that, I don't need to say anything. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need, there you go. Like,
The
it's
miracle speaks
there.
for itself. Yeah.
The saints are always present. And
Yeah.
just the mere factor of being able to go to, because again, I've been a part of some amazing camping ministry, summer,
That's
winter
right.
programs, in and through, the West Coast and the East Coast. But obviously, Ionian Village is in its own area because of what you're able to witness, because what you're able to venerate, because of what you're able to experience.
Yeah.
Through the faith, and to look at such edifices, to look at structures like Saint Andrew and Patras, and
Oh, yeah.
that
Largest Greek Orthodox church
oh my,
in the world. Yeah.
the domes and the chandeliers in
Yeah.
itself, and everything else that you've seen, the iconography,
Yeah.
so again, it was, like I said, it was an experience of an experience,
Yeah.
and just to be able to have that again, like how you said, reading about it, having someone share with you slides, or having somebody talk with you, or having someone that that might have gotten through it, is just a beautiful opportunity that is able to be done.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's an experience that every young Orthodox person in America should have, because the churches in America are beautiful, but they're limited as far as sites where there are saints. The churches are holy in America, but we don't really have holy grounds ourselves, and that's something that Greece and that whole area over there is rich with. And so I would hope that every young person can experience that, because, like you said, the other camps are great as well, but that's the one missing link that they just can't offer, that IV
Oh,
option.
there's so much there that can be offered,
Yeah.
in and through that great program. And I 100%, any individual, whether they apply for scholarships or they're able to go, that should be something that someone, or at least in a household, should look forward to,
Yeah.
or to simply see about, because it is a phenomenal experience, whether someone is of a clergy family or not. You don't come back from those programs the same.
Right.
Hopefully, you come back anew. You come back charged. You come back full of
Yeah.
of a sense of deeper meaning and rooting of one's faith.
Definitely,
You know.
definitely. Cool. So we got into a little bit about your, active ministry right now, but let's turn the clock back a little bit, and let's go back to, I don't know if we're going back to New York or California here. And that's another interesting thing too, because I think of you as a West Coast guy, but I think you're fully East Coast these days with the Patriots and everything. We'll get into that too, but shall we go back to maybe those early days amongst the olive trees in San Bernardino, and tell us what it was
Yeah.
like growing up out there?
I mean, listen, growing up in Southern California, it was a beautiful time in my life. For me, I only knew one parish growing up as a
Sure.
PK, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's a rarity,
Yeah,
for
true.
for a lot of PKs. Some of us might have that, that blessing, and some might have blessings that they have been able to move around,
Hmm.
depending on the reassignments or what have you. But for me, I knew one parish growing up. So my mom and dad, my dad was reassigned, from Troy, New York, where he had just been serving for 13 years at
Oh,
St.
okay.
Basil's in Troy, which is outside of Albany, New York.
Cool.
Um, and there, my dad was assigned to Profitilia, Prophet Elias in San Bernardino, where I grew up, and had that California living in style.
For sure.
But I was the 1% that was in the 80s. I was not a Laker fan. I was not a
God bless
Dodger
you.
fan.
God
Uh,
bless you.
I grew up, because of my dad. He was a
Oh,
Boston sports fan, so he was a Red Sox fan. He was a Celtic fan. Not too much the Patriots, so it was more of the New York Giants. But he didn't like football that much because of the injury that happened to him in high school. So he didn't
Oh,
really like football that much. But to watch it or to share it. But for me, but yeah, but again, it was a beautiful time. I still have some great relationships. The Nuno, the godfather of our youngest, is from that community. And I think he's still serving as the parish council president there now.
no
So
way.
and we grew up together in the altar, and
That's
we had
cool.
that connection, and it was a place. It was a place that I finally look back on and grateful that I was blessed to have been there and grew up in one parish and
Yeah.
just one parish.
I'm sure, 30 years or however many years later, if you were to walk back through those doors on a Sunday, I'm sure you'd be welcomed with open arms. Of course, there's probably new people there, but probably those backbone members will probably still remember you as you were back then. And it's kind of like growing up in that one community as a PK. It's like you have a second family, really. Like imagine a whole network of people that purely just want the best for you, want you to succeed and get ahead in life, and just want all the good things. And I think that's the ideal parish dynamic for any parishioner or member. And as PKs, sometimes we're a little luckier that we get that automatic network. So very cool. So you had the quintessential SoCal childhood. And is that I know you and Father Gary are close, if not kumbadi. Father Gary at St. Sophia.
Oh no, we're close friends.
Close friends, because I remember he came to church in Lexington once. Did you
Yeah.
guys grow up together? Was there at St. Sophia camp? Did you cross paths?
So we crossed paths after I was had entered Hellenic College, and he was thinking of entering Holy Cross.
Oh, so you met
And
at the school.
So
Okay.
we met actually through the school, but it was from the school that one of the clergymen now in the San Francisco metropolis, Father Bill Tragus,
Yeah.
was the camp director of St. Sophia. So as he being an older classman for me, is starting in Holy Cross, and I was entering Hellenic College, he was given the directorship of St. Sophia for a couple of years, and he brought me on board to be a part. And that's where I met, Father Gary, his wife. I remember when they were like initially dating, so that lets you know where I'm at. So, but it was a great experience, and that really got me to look at, especially the time in seminary, to see, because I had individuals before I had gone to seminary that were just happened to be, again, God places the right people in your life at the right time if we see it and if we acknowledge it. While I was a junior in high school or sophomore in high school, we had 3 individuals that were graduates of the seminary that happened to be living in the San Bernardino area.
No way.
Yeah. And he's now Father Markopoulos, right?
Oh, Father Gerasimos, Father Jerry
Yeah,
Markopoulos?
Father Jerry
Up in
Markopoulos.
Oregon. Yeah.
Before he was ordained, he and his wife were down there. Father John Alexandros, who is now the presiding priest there at Prophet Elias.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then Father Steve Ballas, who's now, I believe, in the metropolis of Detroit. I can't remember exactly where.
Okay.
But those 3 guys, along with my Sunday school teacher, who didn't go to seminary, but very close to the faith and how he taught. It kind of taught me like, oh, you can teach the faith, and you can be a regular guy. You can teach the faith and have a personality. You can live the faith and have a sense of humor. Yes. And because again, my dad, God rest his soul, he had all that. He had a personality, but to me, it was always dad. So I always saw the dad, and I saw the pastoral side of him very much so. But of course, he was a dad. So, you're kind of looking, oh, there's another way you can go. You can be a guy that wants to, go and shoot hoops. You're a seminarian, you want to play ball? Okay, yeah. So you have that sense of okay, these were the right guys. And then again, coming into meeting, Father Gary Kyriakou, as well as some other great individuals that were seminarians at the time, that either they have gone on to become clergymen, or they've gone on to be lay leaders in their communities that I still have a great connection with in and through that time period. Yeah.
Very cool. That's interesting because, sixth generation, dad is a priest, Papu is a priest, Pro Papu is a priest, going all the way back. When I was growing up, I have a brother, and we thought that we thought there was like a rule that the son of a priest has to become a priest. And it's interesting because, like you said, you grow up, one church, one priest. That priest is also your dad. So you don't really think of it. You think of something as that's what dad does. Like, you don't think of it something that really applies to you until you kind of see other people like those seminarians. I remember we had Father Jason Roll was ordained at my home parish as well. And that's what kind of, put the blip on my radar. I was like, oh yes, other people can do this. So that's interesting. Even with the 5 previous generations, it took those other guys around to kind of put the light bulb in your head, like, hey, this is something for me, I think. So
Yeah.
that was placed in junior year of high school, about, you said. And then you went to Hellenic College. When you were graduating high school, was the intent fully, I'm going to go to HCHC, I'm going to begin the path now? Or was it, I'm going to go to Hellenic, get my undergrad degree, and just see what happens? Or what was the thought process like there at that point?
It was, I'm going to go to Hellenic, see what this opportunity is.
Yeah.
It's not like today's era where, and I'm experiencing right now because our oldest is a senior in high school.
Oh.
And we're going through the college tours, and we did the college tours. And now it's like, did you get your Common App up? Is it up and running? Do you have it? Have you done this? Back then it was all on paper, and we had to like fill everything out and send everything in. And I had visited the seminary before, years before, again, being able to say, okay, let's see what Boston is like, and going on the seminarian track. So I had gone into religious studies A, which was the format for seminarian status, but I didn't take my calling and my studies seriously until I had a tragedy happen in my life, until my mom fell asleep. And it wasn't until her passing that initially gave me a wake-up signal. It was almost as if I was at the school, kind of just seeing where I want to fit in. And
how old are you? 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, you graduate, you start, you go your first time away, and if you're from a priestly home, there are certain things, and and everything along those lines. And I'm not saying, it was an experience, and it was great. And I had the right guys that were there for me from day one.
Cool.
There has to be something said about having an upperclassman, a big brother, or a big sister that actually cares about you and wants nothing but the best for you. And like I said, those individuals that I shared before, you had a couple of them, and Father Tragus, Father Bill Tragus, Father Gary Kyriakou, who were older than me, because again, my studies or what have you, but their life experiences and just who they were as individuals were some of the best friendships that I ever had in my life. And then certain things that transpired in and through the seminary when I was there. And if I can I go in a different segue real quick?
Please. Yeah.
So what I said before about St. Nectarios. So my mom had, back in 1981, she had a brain tumor. And so she had melanoma on the brainstem. And luckily, through the intercessions of the saint and through those surgical and medical hands, You know, my mom, who was given a period of up to 6 months to live, lived until April 9th, 1999. And
Wow.
this is 1981. Okay.
Wow.
I have memories, I have videos, I have, you know, pictures, I have, you know, stills in my mind of my mom,
Thank
you
God.
know, and so the headaches began coming back again in 1996.
Okay.
And that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do, was to leave my mom in a hospital bed
Man.
to then get on a 5.5, 6 hour flight to go back to Brookline.
Yeah.
And I told my dad, I go, I can't go. He goes, if you don't get on this plane now, you'll never go back.
Oh,
You'll never go back. And
wow.
I go, Dad, I can't. And you know, back then, I'm dating myself, but I had my CD player and
Yeah.
countless CDs, you know, and plenty of batteries, because, you know, back then the batteries would die out from those CD players. And even though I told somebody, now this is the red eye flight, so I'm taking, you know, overnight,
Oh, wow.
I'm landing in Boston at, you know, 6:25 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had reached out. Now, again, no cell phones back then. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, this is my flight. And this is where real brother and sisterhood come in. So I'm landing and I get my luggage, and it's about 7 o'clock, 7:10 a.m. And I walk outside and I see seminarians waiting for me in the pickup area.
Oh,
And I see about 7 or 8 cars that
whoa,
came to pick me up.
man.
And I get teary eyed thinking about it. That's the brotherhood and the sisterhood that is established at that place.
Yeah.
That's why the school is so important to me, because all it took was one car to pick me up,
Yeah.
but there were multiple people there
Yeah.
to be there for me when they didn't have to.
Right. Right.
They could have just simply waited, but you know, whether or not I think it was, maybe it wasn't 7 or 8. It was more people than I expected to be there.
Yeah.
And there were multiple cars. I'll put it that way, because people got into different cars.
Yeah.
But just the mere factor that that was done, and that lets me know, hey, this is the place I need to be.
Right.
And then she fell asleep in the Lord on April 9th, 1999. So 3 years later. But that day that she fell asleep on was Holy and Great Friday.
Whoa.
So while my father and I were probably at church doing the hour service in the morning
Mhm.
and then preparing, she had breathed her last.
Wow.
So, I came home and found her in the late morning. And I had to make that call to my father and to my sister, letting them know, but this is where I say, and again, I'm skipping all this. So God gives us comfort even when
Yes.
we don't see it.
Yes.
So not only did he give me the memories to have my mom here with me for at least up to a certain age frame, up until I was 21, 22. But then, so she falls asleep on April 9th, 1999. My
Mhm.
father-in-law falls asleep on May 24th. Okay, that's a Thursday in that calendar year. Okay, 2011. But that calendar year, that was the Feast of the Ascension.
Oh,
So I have one
wow.
parent that falls asleep on Holy Friday.
Look at that.
I have another parent that falls asleep on the Ascension.
Yeah.
And then my father, who fell asleep 2 years ago, okay, fell asleep on February 2nd, which is the
No
Feast of
way.
the Presentation, where Saint Simeon says, Lord, now let your servant depart in peace, for my eyes have seen your salvation. So 3 parents, those 3 beautiful liturgical days.
Yeah.
I don't need any more comfort.
Yeah, and then with your
you
dad
know?
too, it's also that's Papandi, the church where his dad was a priest in Kalamata.
Right.
It is, even though we lose loved ones in our lives, they're actually with you in a more intimate way than maybe they ever were before. Because
Yeah.
and it's interesting with your mom too, because that experience is kind of what solidified your commitment to the priesthood, kind of like maybe was the loudest that your calling was, I'm assuming, of course. And there's something to be said for the way we pray to the Theotokos, because she kind of intercedes, when we are unsure, she is sure, and she takes us that rest of the way. And I see that in the relationship with you and your mom. And then what a special thing for every Holy Friday, probably one of the most intense emotional days of the year. For priests, physically, you're tired by that point. If you have retreats with the youth, they'll probably be on that Friday. It's like, but then people are worried already about the Margheritza luncheon for Pascha. It's kind of like the culmination of Holy Week, where all this craziness comes to a head on one of the most important days of the year for us. And you have your mom with you forever on that day, as you pray those services. And that is amazing. And like you said, God brings people in our lives at just the right time. And perhaps sometimes when he does have to inevitably take them, he also takes them at the right time too. That is truly amazing, Father.
Oh yeah. I mean, there will not be a time where I don't get choked up
Yeah.
when we read on Holy Thursday night and then Holy Friday morning, where the thief says in the gospel passage, Lord, remember me in your kingdom.
Yeah.
And then he says the words, today you will be with me in paradise. I still get choked up when I read that particular quote when I'm proclaiming the gospel, because it's natural. It's raw emotion that
Yeah.
comes through it.
Yeah.
And again, it's it's a beautiful thing to know just a little bit that of the love and the compassion that God gives, because we'll
Yeah.
never understand. We won't. We cannot.
Right.
We
We
can't
can't.
fathom. We can't
Yeah.
fathom
Yeah.
as we hear in the prayers, we can't fathom the unfathomable. We can't. Yet when we experience, or when we at least sense or see a little bit, that's just the beauty of God, is that he's there whether we see him or not, whether we choose to see him or acknowledge him or not. He's there. He's providing.
Yeah.
And to, like I said, to have those three parents, those three feasts, two of them could be movable, right? It could have been just a regular Friday, and it could have been a regular Thursday,
Yeah.
right? But on the church calendar for those 2 years,
Yeah.
I have one parent that falls asleep on Holy and Great Friday, and another parent that falls asleep on the Ascension.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, that's completion. And then my dad, on that day of Saint Simeon, that the Papandi, the presentation into the temple, which, like you said, and you remembered, God bless you in your memory. I don't have a great memory. That's why I'm good for confession.
That's a good line.
But no, it like, and then that was my papu's church. Yeah, it's like, okay, it's like God provides.
Yeah.
God provides, and there are sometimes I don't like to share that, because I don't want people to look and say, how come I didn't get that? How come I didn't
Right.
get that compassion?
Right.
How come I didn't get that? Or how come, and and the thing is, it's not a how come or why. I just have to share what God and how he comforts me. And to
Right.
know that for those 3 times that I would think of those, now, whether or not it's April 9th, May 24th, it's always going to be those feasts. It's
Yeah.
always going to be Holy Friday, Ascension, no matter what those days fall on, how early or how late, it's always going to be that day. I'll
Right.
always be in church, God willing, when those services take place, to just simply give honor and respect and worship to God, while at the same time just saying with a tearful eye, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Definitely. That's cool. And and that's interesting. You touched on kind of the case with the miracles. If we have, I would call those miracles, when something happens so beautifully and perfectly, that is, to me, is a miracle. And God kind of grants these miracles to people in the way that they need them, right? And it's easy for people to say, why doesn't that happen for me? I think for you in your life, God knew that these are the type of miracles that would speak to you. I've had a few experiences in my life that, looking back, you wonder why they happen. It's like, I probably needed those. I need those for me, and they sustain me to this day. Not everybody needs those specific miracles. And I think if we're aware enough spiritually, that we will see little miracles in our own life, the way that they apply to us. So thank you for sharing that. That really is, that's awesome in the true meaning of the word. So now you're back at HCHC, still in Hellenic College. From that from that moment on, you have the outpouring of support from your brothers and sisters there. Were you like pedal to the metal? I know that I want to do this the rest of my life. What was the rest of your journey like at the seminary? Is this when you dabbled into camps and everything too?
Well, I had always been doing youth ministry from day one. So I was blessed by Metropolitan Methodius to, be given a job, because sometimes at seminary you're not able to make a little bit of ends in order to have some funds. And he, from my freshman year, blessed me to work for the basketball league. So I was always be there on Sundays when there would be Goya basketball games from 12 noon until 9 o'clock at night. And then, so that was my first little kind of steps. And then we would do Saturday retreats at various parishes in the metropolis of Boston, back then, the Diocese of Boston. So I was always involved with youth. And then the year after, I had done certain camps, St. Sophia Camp, St. Nicholas Ranch. But after my mom passed, I was like, okay, it's time to really wake up and say, what do I want to do? What do I feel that God is calling me to do? Because now, because I wasn't as serious in my studies, a beautiful person in my life never got to see me wear the cap and gown in college.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, what can I do to honor her memory?
Yeah.
I got to be serious in at least what I want to do in my studies for right now. So, completed Hellenic College and then entered Holy Cross, and wasn't thinking of relationships, wasn't thinking of wanting to date somebody. I said, I want to focus on my studies and just, I don't want to like do my time and get out and go back to the West Coast and then go back to California and enjoy some Southern California, atmosphere. But and then lo and behold, when you put God first, he provides other things that you don't see. And that's when he brought in through, individuals in this life, a beautiful soul who I'm blessed to go in this journey with each and every day, and to say thank you to him for providing me such a beautiful soul to be my partner in this life. And
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it was the plan. You just in your mind, I'm going right back to SoCal after this.
Oh yeah.
How could you not? What am I saying?
I love the Boston sports, and again, it's the '90s, so the Celtics weren't that much, and the Red Sox weren't doing, the Patriots. There was no Tom Brady. Until the early 2000s. Then you're like, okay, so it was just like I'm tired of the cold. I want to go back, and then you meet a local girl and who is from the area, and as they say, the rest is still being written.
That's awesome, isn't it? It's funny that so Presbytera Gloria arrives like at the perfect time and changes the whole script probably in the best way possible, right? Because like I
Oh,
like how you put it, it's someone to come on this journey with you, right? We don't know where life's journey will take us, but we encounter certain people that, can have a drastic improvement on this journey. And so you link up. She's from Boston. Is President from Boston?
she's from the Lowell area, so right
Oh,
outside of
cool.
Boston.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you meet Presitera, and now the West Coast guy becomes an East Coast guy.
Oh yeah, I've been more East Coast than I have West Coast, so
Yeah.
that's which is okay. That's all right.
It is, obviously, yeah, yeah, it's worked out. So you met Presitera while you're still in the seminary?
I did. I met her through a mutual friend. At the time, the person that introduced us was a director of the Metropolis of Boston camp,
Cool.
and he's like, I think I got a girl for you. I'm like, like I told you, I'm focusing on my studies. He says, all right, just come by. We were doing a mailing because that's what we did then. Now it would be like a,
Oh man.
constant contact send out, right? You don't need anybody. It's just one person to hit send,
Yeah. But you're
and back
stuffing
then
envelopes.
we had to do the mailing, and you had to sort it everything. And he goes, come and meet her. And lo and behold, she was somebody that caught my eye months before,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to approach because the person that I was close with, who is now my cubaro, our cubaro, basically was like, oh, she's kind of talking with somebody, but it's not serious. And I'm like, I don't do that. I
Yeah.
respect somebody. I
Yeah.
don't do that. But I saw her months before, and then when I entered into the office to do the mailing, there she is, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, this is okay. All right, don't
That's
mess
very
this up. Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. Okay,
that's hilarious.
don't do nothing stupid. All right.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, and like I said, it's been a great journey since, and we started dating. When I want to say October into November, 2001 is when we started to date, and then that yeah,
That's awesome.
it's been a great date ever since.
That's a good way. That's how it should be. That's a good way to put it. Cool. So you're helping out the summer camps. You meet your future presitera. You're finishing up in the school, and then you were pastoral assistant youth director at Weston first. What was the timeline like after graduation towards ordination? Were you ready to rock and roll? What was it like being a pastoral assistant as well? Because it's a rare role in the church, and it's quite literally
Yeah.
whatever you make it. It's one that I've been working since graduation. What was that like for you?
For me, it was a part-time position
Okay.
until I came on board full-time as the clergyman. So it was understanding that I would be the second priest there.
Makes sense.
But it was great. I mean, it was my responsibilities at the time were to re-energize the youth ministry programs of the community, and to help oversee whatever other kind of pastoral outreach could be done in the parish, while working with the proestamino of the parish. That was at the time Father Nick
Oh,
Cremidas, who I have so much love and respect for. Because like you said before, I saw my dad and how he handled certain things. And then
mhm,
I saw how Father Nick handled certain things.
mhm.
And what I would say, both clergymen were successful in their ministry, how they handled certain things, but I was able to see a 180 from the other. And
Yeah.
because of their not because of their personalities, their demeanors, two great individuals, lions in my life, along with my
Yes.
third person, my spiritual father, at the same time. So I had three individuals that I could always look up to and get guidance from, along with other, individuals. But being there at the time, it was great. It was exciting, having, graduated, and then a week later getting married. You know, yeah, it was a week later that we, you know, we got married, and it was just the mere, you know, joy. It's not that I was pushing for ordination. I kind of kept putting it off.
Oh,
And I still read St. John Chrysostom's book on the priesthood
yeah.
at least once a year to give my mind the proper refocus, and my heart and my direction the refocus. You know, I kept putting it off and putting it off and say, I don't know, maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I'm not ready.
Sure.
Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready. And then it was finally Gloria that kind of said one night, stop putting it off.
Wow.
You're not going to be any more ready tomorrow
Yeah.
than you are right now, than we
Beautiful.
are right now.
Yeah.
And just, you're not going to do anything more to prepare yourself.
Right.
You know, and she said it in a loving way.
Yeah, of course.
And so, you know, I was ordained on that beautiful day in which the night before the New England area got 27.5 inches of snow from
No.
Saturday night
Oh,
into
this is bringing
Sunday
back a
morning.
lot of bad
So,
memories.
so, so I'm looking, and I talked to His Eminence. The ordination happened in Lowell at the Transfiguration Church, and
Cool.
His Eminence took us up on the offer that we brought him to the hotel so he wouldn't have to drive, you know,
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah,
next
it's a
morning.
hike.
You
Yeah.
know, and so I go, Your Eminence, is this something? Should we like postpone it? Like, is this something that God is trying to say? Like I don't know, And so I get up, and I get up at, I didn't sleep that night, and
No, yeah.
I shoveled, the cars of the first cars that were going to be going. So obviously His Eminence's car, my car. I go upstairs to shower. His Eminence's car is fine. The guy who parked next to me took his snow and put it back on my side, so I had to reshovel again.
No
Um,
way.
yeah,
The day of the
so
ordination.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm driving there. I'm already sweating. My dad's in the front seat of the car, and we get there, and I won't forget the words of His Eminence, because not too many people came because of the conditions, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was basically family and some of those individuals that were able to be there.
Brave the elements.
But I remember His Eminence's words to me that day, that may my ministry be as pure as the white as the snow that has fallen,
Ooh.
and may it produce that much in your ministry, in your service, and not to forget to serve. And so I never, once a deacon, always a deacon, as he
Yeah.
reminded me. So yeah, that was the ordination to the diaconate on that day. So yeah,
That's beautiful.
blizzard conditions and an ordination.
Very kind of like a humble, intimate, meaningful ordination, probably
Oh yeah,
quieter than the usual hubbub now, with social media and everybody's got camera on their phones. Ordinations can be a bit crazy. And this was, as His Eminence said, Metropolitan Methodius, it was, beautiful and pure, as is, the snow. This is the one thing I did enjoy about the snow, being a West Coast guy in Boston. It is so peaceful the morning after a storm. Like
oh yeah,
everything's fresh. There's like a serenity, about the air, and there's a reminder that we're just on God's earth. This is not our earth. The buildings, everything shuts down, and so it is pretty beautiful that's the way you entered ordained ministry as a deacon back then, and that is very cool, very
yeah.
cool. And then did you go about a month or a couple months later for priesthood then? And was
Yeah,
that
it was 3 weeks later.
maybe?
I was ordained to the second rank of the priesthood, as a presbyter,
Ah,
at the St. Demetrios parish in Weston, where I was serving.
got it.
So that day was clear skies, sunny.
Awesome.
Cold New England day in February, but
Sure.
had the chance to have a good amount of seminarians come.
Awesome.
that I still remember that are clergymen now, that were underclassmen or
Oh yeah.
so that way I got to know some individuals, traveled out to be with us on that day. So it was beautiful. And then 3 weeks after that, I was given the ranking of Father Confessor by His Eminence
Whoa.
as well. Yeah.
Whoa, that's for those of you who might not know, that's an office that oftentimes doesn't come for several years. That's the epigonation, right? That's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
diamond-shaped addition to the vestments that you see at the
Yes.
priest's knee. And so that came almost immediately. Was that because you were so involved in camps and kids are confessing to you all the time, or
Well, I mean, I couldn't hear confessions, but I know that at the time there was, I had the relationship, and so His Eminence entrusted. I thought it was just going to be a blessing, like sure you can hear the confessions of, but when he asked me to come for the service, and it happened on the Feast of the Annunciation.
cool?
So, I was ordained a priest, in February, and then March 25th. A month later, I'm receiving this other, blessing from the church, this ranking, which
Right.
is like you said, it's awe-inspiring. It's to have the responsibility
Yeah.
of guiding a soul, just as much as I'm being guided, right, by my spiritual father. But to have that given to you, I had that FOVO, I still do, and that fear, and that you have to make sure that you're leading that individual or those individuals closer to Christ in and through that beautiful relationship that God has put you in, not
Yeah.
because of anything that we do, but to make sure that we're doing what He's calling us to do.
Right, right, right. Wow, amazing. And now we're going to get into something I've wanted to ask you about for a long time. As I mentioned
Oh,
at the beginning, no, it's nothing crazy. As I mentioned at the beginning, I would, so every year at the seminary, when you're a seminarian, you are assigned to a parish for a different reason. One year I was assigned at Holy Trinity Lowell to help in the altar and help with Sunday school when I could, and at the chant stand, of course. And then by your senior year, you're assigned to shadow a priest. And you and I was assigned to you, which was cool because we were kind of on the same wavelength. And I'd been helping at parishes for like the first 3 years. At some point, all of us were just parishioners, right? And I knew I was going into a final year of seminary, and that my church experience would forever change. After that, I would always be on the serving working side, which is fine, right? That's what we all went to the school to do. But for this last year, I was really hoping that there was just a place where I could simply kind of attend liturgy. And of course, I would talk to you. We did like parish council stuff, which we might get into. And we would do a few things. But truly, I was able to get in my car, drive to Lexington, Massachusetts, which was just a beautiful little town. It's it's a very peaceful place to go and kind of break up the week. And then the Church of St. Nicholas it's probably the smallest church in America that I've physically been to in my life. It kind of looks like an old maritime building, and I love that it's St. Nicholas, the patron saint of sailors, and that it looks like a classic New England like fishing building. And my dad had chanted there when he was at the seminary, so I love this
huh.
church. And I would love going there because it was kind of the recharge I needed for my next week at the school. And it was specifically thanks to your preaching style. I mean, of course, like liturgy was enjoyable. And then at the end, you had a very natural, engaging style of preaching. And you said something earlier in our episode, how you saw these other guys and you thought, hey, you can have a sense of humor and preach. You can have a little kefi, a little life, and you can still preach the word of God. So how did you develop your preaching style, if it's even something you ever thought about developing or just came to be? And what is your approach to preaching?
Wow. Man, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going on almost 20 years, which is hard to fathom. The one of the things that I saw early on was, and I kind of thought this way, is what kind of priest do I want to be?
Yeah.
I want to be the kind of priest that if I am a husband, I trust that individual in speaking with my wife,
Yeah.
that he's a good dude.
Yeah.
I, as a dad, that I would trust my children in and around this individual.
Yeah.
And then as me, as now as a husband, as a father, and now myself as a guy, is this somebody that I can go and talk to openly and just be genuine and say, you know, if I have questions about the faith, rightfully so, but if I just need to sit down and just, you know, hey, you know, I got to pick your brain on something. Not to say that I would give that particular advice, just a set of ears for an individual, right? But who and what could I offer? And I never forgot that. And the other thing that I once remember is, you know, my sister, who is also obviously a PK, she's 12 years older than me, so I am an accident. So I have no problem saying that. Okay, I'm an accident. I'm a surprise. You know, on the day of my ordination, you know, everyone is, you know, emotional, and I remember her telling me in a loving way, you know, what you say is going to bring me back next week.
Ah.
How you deliver your words is going to help me get through the week.
Yeah.
Am I walking out feeling stronger, or that I can fight what I'm fighting through, or to look forward to say, yeah, I need to come back next week.
Yeah.
I need to be here next week. And she goes, I understand the service. I understand, but your words, are they real to me today?
Right.
Does he know what's going on in my life? Does he know what's happening in today's era? Does he know the difficulties that or the challenges that we're facing in our households? And how is he bringing this? And that's where my sister told me, that's where you're going to have to, because if you don't, you're not going to see me again. And she's not talking about her. She's talking about in general, right?
Yeah. Parishioners, people. Yeah.
Right.
The faithful. Yeah.
So and I never forgot that, and I tried to make sure that whatever preaching style that you know, I think my preaching habits have changed, or maybe they've altered a
That's
little bit,
natural. Yeah.
you know, and rightfully so. But you know, depending whether it's a youth sermon, or whether it's the main adult sermon, or the main sermon that I give, you know, to make sure that hopefully what I'm preaching and sharing and informing is something that an individual can either grasp at, can say, okay, oh, all right, I not that I learned something today, I needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
I needed my heart to hear that today, or that stuck with me today. And which is why I would always record my sermons, because I didn't want to say the same sermon. As you know, for those of your viewers and your listeners that are of the Orthodox faith, you know that we have the church lectionary, which there are certain epistle and gospel passages through the entire year. And you know, how many times can we preach on this? How many times can we preach on this? How many times? Well, you know, yes, you can preach so much on it. Just look at the words of the saints, you know. But I didn't want to give the same intro, the same kind of joke, the same kind of, you know, and or ending. And I said, okay, I'm going to start recording my sermons, because I want to make sure that even though the outcome and is the same, I need to make sure my delivery is one that, because the worst thing that can happen is, oh, the priest is going to get up, he's going to talk about this. This is his intro. This is the body, and this is the ending.
You come in a mile away. Yeah.
Right. And I've said that from day one. When that happens in my ministry, that's the day that I stop. Yeah. That's the day that I stop preaching, or at that particular parish, because again, that's not helping anyone, whether it's myself or the others. And the other thing for me is when I preach, I try to preach to myself, that I need to hear either what I'm saying what I feel as if God has inspired me. And sometimes, I shouldn't even say sometimes, there are a good amount of times that I will say something in my sermon that is not either written or with notes, and it comes to me.
Yeah.
Like this. And I say it, and I'm like, where did that come from? And I'm like, okay, that is the grace of the Holy Spirit.
For
That
sure.
is fulfilling what is lacking.
Yes.
That is the awe of the priesthood, of Christ, not of me, of Christ. And so to me that, and I did have some inspiration. My dad was, people would say he had passion when he would preach, and
Yeah.
he would always preach from the Soleil area. He rarely would he go and preach from the pulpit, and I got used to that and preaching from the Soleil area, because again, when you're talking with kids and camps, you're not talking to them from like behind a lecture. You're right next to them. You're talking with them. You're guiding them. So that kind of
You're moving
one-on-one.
around, they're moving around. You gotta, yeah.
And again, that became kind of my forte, and I don't want to say forte. That became a
I would say
style.
forte.
Yeah, a
In the sense
style.
that I appreciate that I feel you prioritize preaching. Not everybody does, and that's okay. We all have different things that we're pulled to, but I kind of sense that this was something you enjoyed, B, were naturally good at, and C, you knew the importance of it. And that, because that's something that I had always kind of connected with. So it was cool for me as a senior to like see a guy that also prioritized it. And it's cool to hear your thought process behind it, because now it makes sense to me all these years later.
No, it was like I said, and it was one of the programs that was done by Father Chris Metropolis, actually. It was the Preachers Institute, like
No way.
that they had. Oh yeah, and it was done on the grounds of the seminary. And I want to say maybe I was like maybe year 7 or 8 into priesthood, and Father Chris had brought in for a clergy retreat. He had brought in um, individuals who were given. I think they were the Protestant faith. I can't remember. Critiques on preachers.
Okay.
And so they would critique us in our style, not in our theology
Sure.
but just our delivery,
Yeah.
articulation, movements, body. And I had one of the ladies said, "Can I ask you a question?" I go, "Yeah, of course." She goes, "You seem like you're you smile, or you didn't smile once." I go,
Oh.
"Really?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "You're kidding me." She goes, "No, like there's a part of me that wants to ask if you're okay, because like, are you going through something? Like I could, and I go, "No." She goes, "Okay, you gotta make sure you put that into your sermon. You gotta like smile here or anything like that." So it was, had I not taken part of that and that's where they came to me of recording yourself, because you can hear how you are when you go back and play it. Like, oh, I delivered that, but I didn't deliver it the way I was hoping to deliver it. I wanted it to come with passion, but it might be perceived as a little bit of anger. So I need to know where my vocal levels are to make sure that when I need to make sure I'm emphasizing a point, I'm emphasizing it. But when I want to excite a point, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, because I know from you, I record my sermons now, and because our church posts them on the website and stuff. But sometimes, you have in your sermon prep, which I like how you talked about, you have your notes, you have your text, but then the Holy Spirit you allow space for the Holy Spirit to work through you in the moment, which I think is a perfect balance for preaching any career that you're in or in life in general. And it's funny, there'll be like a point that you really hope people take away from, and sometimes I just glaze right over it. Like there's no pause, there's no emphasis, and it's like, oh, what am I doing? So it's cool to hear that all these years later you're still self-reflecting, evaluating, and it's from this program that Father Chris set up. And at the time, was Father Chris, was it through OCN? Was it another entity he was involved in with like
I think it was through the APC,
through APC?
the Archdiocese Presbyters Council, that it was one of the clergy retreats, and it was done at the school. And we were in Maliotis, and we were giving we had to do 2 sermons. One was a main sermon, and one was a youth sermon. And I won't forget that, because it made me, that retreat made me want to be a better preacher.
Cool. Very cool.
And I don't mean just by preaching, saying something and then saying amen and giving out the andidero at the end of service. No, like to be a better clergyman, like to be, who, as you probably have heard many individuals say, our pulpit is wherever we're at. Our pulpit is our. Somebody cuts me off, and what's the first?
What are you preaching to that person?
Right. What do I want to say to that person? Well, what do I want to say, and what I should say, and what I am called to say are different things.
Yeah.
And that's my pulpit. And when I'm shopping, that's my pulpit. And when I'm out and about with my kids, that's my pulpit. When I'm home with my kids who know me, that's also my pulpit, because what they hear me say and preach, they can be like, that's a different guy up there. That's a different guy. That's not the guy who says, have love and respect in the house. Yeah, no, because again, my boys from me are going to see what a dad is like.
Yes.
And I fall short of that regularly, right? And I tell them that when I mess up, I'll tell them I messed up as a dad. I didn't get a manual that said, this is how to be the Costarakis boy's dad.
Yeah.
I didn't get that manual. It hasn't been
never
made.
Came in. Yeah.
It never came in. I don't know. It's postmarked. I don't know.
I'm looking for it. Yeah.
I'm looking at it on Amazon. It's there. It says delivered, but I never got it. Okay. No, nothing against Amazon. It could be any package ever.
Any delivery company. Yeah.
Any delivery service. But my thing is, they're going to understand. They're going to know what a dad is, what a husband is, from the way I treat them and my wife, right? And then they're going to also know, is this guy a priest just on the outside, or is he a priest on the inside too?
Right.
Like when I come home and things present themselves, what am I doing? If I say, hold on, I need to pause for a minute. I need to go pray about this.
Yeah.
Or can we pray together about this? Or I'm asking if you don't mind putting pause on what you're doing right now, because I really could use your help right now.
Yeah.
Then that's something else that can present itself. So again, it's again, that's just our pulpit. So no matter where we are, it constantly moves.
Yeah, it's perfect that you put it that way, because it kind of brings us to the next thing that I always like to ask the priest that I interview. When you're not at St. George, or when you're not at any church that you're serving, what are some of the hobbies, areas of interest, the things that you do that keep you outside of kind of like when you're on, shall we say?
Yeah, no, I mean, things have changed the last couple of years, obviously, with the falling asleep of my dad. And then in that same time period, we got a puppy. So we have a little dog. So I never thought I was a dog person.
First dog in your life?
First dog ever. Like, I have no problem. No.
First time to Greece, first dog.
Had dog. Yeah, my sister had dogs, and I would go and play with them. She had 2 German Shepherds. And so great dogs. Cool. But this one we have is a mini Saint Berdoodle. Yes, don't ask me how those 2 came to be. Okay, I don't want to know.
What a miracle!
But she is a great dog. So I didn't know that I was like a dog dad. I didn't know that about me, but now it's just like, now it's totally, so you have that,
How big is a Saint Berdoodle? Is it more on the Saint Bernard size, or is it like a?
No, it's a mini. It's a small.
Mini.
She's 34 pounds. So she's 33
Solid.
pounds. 30,
Okay,
yeah.
solid.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, again, having, you know, for me personally, you know, some of the activities that I might do, obviously outside of pastoral responsibilities,
Yeah.
right? Some things I try to exercise as best as I
Nice.
can, at least, you know, 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah, you're an
Um,
active guy. You're always playing
try.
basketball, still doing basketball and then hitting the gym and stuff.
I haven't played in some time, but I signed up for another year of an over 30 men's league in the town
Awesome.
that I live in, and been doing that since we moved up here. So I'm still trying to, you know, play basketball until the jump shot fades away, but it's still there.
Yeah, you still got your Ray Allen. Yeah. Did you ever play in like the church leagues or with parishioners? Because I mean, we all had the flag football league at the seminary, which like ironically, it's a league of seminarians, but there were some very, you know, some raw emotions and interactions on that on the gridiron out there. Did you ever play with parishioners? And if you did, what is it like competing with people that you're serving? Like, did you have to, are you a fiery competitor or are you like kind of
Oh
just,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
yeah. So back in the day, like at seminary, we'd have a men's league, and it was open to basically individuals that were of the Orthodox faith in the Boston
in the
area.
Boston area?
And
Okay.
we had, you know, a couple of teams from the seminary, so we were very competitive. I was telling a story the other day that I think it was myself, you know, um, some other clergymen that were there, and we were up by like 30 or 40 points in a game
Oh,
against another team, and one of the guys who was a priest, you know, was shooting a free throw. He wasn't a priest at the time, he was seminarian. He was shooting a free throw, and you know, he was dribbling the ball, getting ready, and this girl, I think she was either a girlfriend, fiance, or a wife of one of the other players, was like, "You guys are losing to a bunch of priests by 30 points. This is pathetic." And she walked out of the gym. And so that was like one of our that was a funny
you
experience
must
that we
reminisce
had.
on that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we were laughing, you know, we were
Yeah.
like, you know, but it was, you know, this, you know, one of the things that I did, and again, that's how I got to know you a little bit better, was when I was at St. Nicholas in Lexington. Um, you know, a lot of our communities will do like an end of the, you know, ministry calendar year, right? Like, so let's say May or June, they'll do like an end of the year barbecue or something like that to say thank you to the ministry leaders or to the youth, to give something, you know, as people might venture to do certain things in the summer months, and then a welcome back that will happen in September. One of the things that we did was like a pickup basketball game right down
Cool.
the street. And so you know, we did adults versus, I think, the older Goyans, and I was part of the adult team. And you know,
How did that go?
being able, I mean, there's a good way of trash talking in a good way that, you know, you're doing
Makes
it
it
out of
fun.
love and respect.
Yeah.
But some people are like, I didn't know that was in you. Like, you know, that was that kind of side of you, like competitive, you know. And again, it just lets everybody know that, you know, that everything can be done in moderation and in love, and again, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
you know, that the chalice provides for us, you
Yeah.
know, because we have that ultimate relationship in and through the chalice that then can stem to other venues like this, and for people, and that's how we get to know each other. Like, how do we come here, we pray together, you know, we grow together, we experience life's journeys together, and then you have these other settings that you can say, hey, I know you, but I don't know that much about you,
Right.
or you know, and it gives us these other areas to at the end of the day say, wow, I which can be a positive thing. I learned something great, or I learned something else, you know.
Sure.
And I'm not saying to one should, you know, that one works and one does not, you know. It's the sense of the opportunity, because again, as clergymen, we're human beings.
Yes, definitely.
Do I tell people regularly, am I going to mess up? Absolutely. because I am a human being.
Yeah.
That's why your hopes aren't in Father Demetri. Your hope is in Christ. Okay.
Amen.
Put
Yeah.
your hope in Christ. You know, that St. Paul says, our hope is in him, right?
Yeah.
Because I will let you down. Christ will not, I will. And some, Father, we expected more from you. Well, I'm a human being. You
Yeah.
know, I'm sorry, this is my limit, or this is what I feel I can do. You know, and especially there is a fine line to that, especially like I told you, you know, again, my dad was one of those priests, never took a day off.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I looked at and said, okay, I'm a product of that, whether it
Mhm.
was good or whether it's not. How do I want to handle that when I am one day called into my own area of serving Christ? You know,
Yeah.
and because there is a fine line that an individual can serve one too much and not enough to the other.
Yeah.
And there has to be that fine line to let individuals know, you know, that again, the church starts at home first.
Yes. The first
The
church.
church starts at home first.
Yeah.
And in order to have a healthy ministry, or a working ministry or productive ministry, there has to be a healthy and working one in the house first. You
Very
know,
true. Very true. And speaking of, you know, a healthy ministry, a productive ministry, a blessed ministry, what advice might you offer? Maybe there's someone watching the podcast now that that is thinking of the priesthood one day, or has maybe not thought about it before, but is getting more involved and might see themselves in a certain role. What advice might you offer someone that might be trying to find their own path towards the priesthood?
if the knock is there, it's only going to get louder
Ah,
if you keep ignoring it. The knock will get louder.
it got
That's
louder
number
for
one.
you.
It got louder. It got
Yeah,
louder.
yeah.
But no, I would say is if there is an individual in thinking of serving the church um, in the most humbling way by being unworthily a priest of the Most High,
Mhm.
um, through our unworthiness. Um, it's humbling, and the mere factor of having a relationship with someone who is currently in that position, to seek for guidance. So if it's somebody who is either at the seminary now, or is thinking of seminary, or they don't know if they want to be a lay leader or a clergyman, you know, a small p priesthood that we're
Yeah,
all called to be,
right.
or you know, or seeking God's guidance. I would say that the knock will get louder, and the persons that God has put you in your life will help guide you there,
Yeah,
along with your continued focus and direction in putting God first. I have to tell you, when my mom fell asleep, and I never forgot this because I heard it even later on, when an individual um, when an individual has someone in their life that is close to them that falls asleep, they never stay the same. Either they
Mhm.
grow closer in their faith, in their relationship with God, or they might go in the other direction.
Yeah,
And being a priest now for 19 years, I've seen that. I've
yeah,
seen that when an individual, when a loved one falls asleep, you could see this person is either getting more involved or less involved. They don't stay the same.
right.
And for me, you know, the loss of my mom brought me into a gain of a more focused direction and
Yeah,
ministry, and servitude to God. And that was in and all through his compassion. And, you know, and it was even, so even though I had a loss, there was a gain. And,
yes,
and it wasn't until I started again to put God first that we realize God provides, you know,
yes,
he provides constantly.
yeah,
And just read scripture. He provides. It's all there. Every single time he provides. Maybe people want other things or are expecting different things. Maybe that's not the best outcome for that individual, because again, God knows. And but for me, I would tell for that young person who is either thinking to pray about it, and talk to those individuals who that individual sees as guidance in this life and all avenues, whether it be obviously parents, if they're under a certain age, or even if they're not, just to get a wherewithal, siblings, and then obviously if it's in the life of the church, if that person is dedicated, talking to that individual who is a clergyman, or maybe somebody, a priest from that camp that they've gotten to know, and to say, I'm having, I don't know, I need to run something by you. And because the greatest thing that we can have in this life is having relationships that are rooted in and through Christ. And once they're formed, there's a bond that can't be broken, because Christ, he's there in and through those turbulent times in our lives. And whether we say, where is he? It's because chances are we're leaving. He's not leaving. We're detracting ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question, or are you looking?
No, it does, because that you said, you put it in an interesting way earlier. You said you had 3 lions in your life, and often we hear the phrase or the term spiritual father, which of course is a necessary, meaningful relationship and a guiding force in our lives, but the term lion is kind of more all-encompassing, because like you said, it's it's for all aspects of life, like for whatever you're trying to accomplish, not just spiritually. You need a lion to look for. You need someone that is like, lions we think of as like these creatures that live a life of a battle, which the life of a priest is a life of service, but it is a life of a spiritual battle. Not only are you fighting your own spiritual battles on your path, you're fighting the spiritual battles of an entire community of people. So you're going to need some lions that you can lean on currently, or that you can reflect on, like you with your dad. And I don't know if any of your other lions have passed away, but you're going to need those people to lean on, because you're not fighting just for yourself. You're fighting for the souls of all those entrusted to you. The souls represented by the fringes on the petrachili, like your papus. Which, if I can just ask real quick, because this is something I was wondering about. You wore the petrachili on your ordination. Where is the petrachili? I picture it in a glass case, it's this super special artifact. How do you preserve it or keep it special? I know my dad has some of his papus in there in drawers, but where are these things for you?
That one is kept on the side. I was actually thinking of wanting to put it in a glass kind of case, or at least a protective kind of thing. It used to be gold, and it has since, obviously because the materials of it has turned it almost like a lightish greenish kind of colored.
Wow.
But no, it's still there. It's right adjacent.
Oh, cool! You have it with you in the church.
Okay, so it is. And whenever I move some things around, I see it there, and I'm like, okay, I needed to see this today. I need to be reminded that am I being, even though my papoon did not have martyr bloodshed,
right?
Am I martyring for Christ? Am I living the life that calls for me to live and to walk the way that the saints have? That and sometimes, I come across, I'm like, yeah, I needed to see that today. I needed a reminder, or as one individual would say, I needed another Damascus moment. Where St. Paul has one, right? And he becomes St. Paul for that reason, because he's St. Paul. But for
Yeah.
me, he gives me Damascus moments
Yeah.
for me to wake up or to refocus again and say, hey, come on,
Yeah.
remember what you're here for. Remember
Yeah.
what you're called to do. Or just to remind me of what this is all about.
Right.
Not about me, but about him.
Right.
So, yeah.
Beautifully put. Well, thank you, Father Demetrios. We're coming to the end of our hour here on the program. But for me personally, it was a great joy to not only hear your story, but to catch up with you after so many years. Kind of like a full circle thing for me as a young seminarian. Would see you at school and then saw you in action at Lexington, and now it's cool to hear your story. So I appreciate it, and I know a lot of the listeners and the audience through OCN is going to enjoy this episode very much. It was a pleasure to sit down with you, Father.
Well, thank you. And may our Lord continue to bless you and your ministry, your parents, your siblings, your nieces.
Yeah.
And again, I look forward, hopefully that our paths may cross in person.
Definitely.
If they don't, in and through these opportunities like this. But yeah, it was a true blessing to have you be with us at St. Nicholas. I still think of that beautiful community
Yeah.
regularly, having been there for 13 years,
Yeah.
and now here faithfully serving the faithful of St. George. And again, the community of St. Demetrios, where I began. So with the transfiguration in between after St. Demetrios, where I was ordained at and where we were married at. So, those communities are still lodged deep in my heart. And it was great to be with you. Thank you. And I pray that you and your family have a blessed and happy Thanksgiving. All
Thank
right.
you, Father. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Path to the Priesthood.